Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs, where we show you how to build a successful business and to have a life too. We're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time and to get off the treadmill so we can experience a life of significance. And now, your host and the author of the #1 best-selling business book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, Chuck Blakeman.
Today, I'm with Paul Romig-Leavitt. Paul is a versatile and accomplished creative leader known for his work in music, film, theater, and church ministry. Paul is a producer and director of short films and plays, and his work has been seen around the country in live events with as many as 500,000 people. In 2006, Paul founded Torn Curtain Arts, a nonprofit company that provides creative consulting and interim workshop leaders to several Colorado churches and nonprofits. He's the author of Q Lines, a collection of short plays and sketches that published in 2012. And Paul also runs his own business audiovisual company, RL Creative. And in July 2024, because he had nothing else to do, he took on the role of executive director of Backstory Theater in Broomfield, Colorado. Paul, I'm tired reading your bio.
I kind of tired just listening to it. I was like, what? This guy has problems. That's what I hear.
Yeah, as my friend in Ireland says, I've never gotten in trouble saying no.
Yeah.
No, I sure do get in trouble saying yes. So yeah,
yes.
You got the same problem I have. Oh, I can do that. I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
How can I do that?
Yeah. No, it's all. I think I am just so. I kind of addicted to creativity. So it's the idea of something that really captures my attention, and then it won't let me go. And I think I've kind of resolved that there's a healthier way to go about it, but like not to be afraid that there's something in there that's what makes my life worth living, that I'm enjoying it. So yeah,
I feel the same way. It's not taking on a challenge; it's taking on a challenge that needs creative energy. That's I think that's the entrepreneur's mindset. Is that anybody could do this thing? It'll just take a lot of hard work. But that thing, that's going to take a lot of creative thinking to make that work.
Yeah,
and that changes the thing. And and there's an addiction in that. And fortunately, there's not a lot of people in the world who have the entrepreneurial mindset. Most people are business owners, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah,
not entrepreneurs, and there's a good reason for that, because we don't need that many people like you and me. It's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, today we do want to talk about you went through a shift from being an income producer. You call yourself a recovering income producer, still growing into what it means to be a business owner.
Yeah.
And so I'll give a sort of a quick definition of how I see those two things so people have context for them. The difference for me is real simple. An income producer is somebody who sees themselves integral to the success of the business on a tactical daily basis. And specifically, I'm making money. That's the statement of an income producer. I'm making money. That's, I'm income producing. A business owner says, instead of saying I'm making money, they say I'm building a business that makes money. And with that statement, you can actually take a week off and the business makes money when you are not there. The income producer, they might be able to fake a week off rather than take one off and actually get through the week. But the reality of it is they had to work like crazy before and they work like crazy afterwards. And if they took 3 weeks off, the whole thing would start to fall apart. So that's income producer versus business owner. Give me a little bit of your journey on how you started out and maybe didn't even know you were an income producer, but give us the beginning.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of go around the model of a crisis where it's like nobody changes unless they're forced to change. So that was I feel like it was probably in 2019 where a mutual friend had connected me to 3 to 5 Club because my partner Brian and I we're overwhelmed, exhausted. We were changing our sort of career path together, and we're trying to do this thing with Torn Curtain, this nonprofit, and we're like, we just don't know how to do it. And so thankfully we found 3 to 5 Club. And that was the first time I had encountered that language of income producer versus business owner. And so I was really starting to learn what I kind of, I have sometimes my optimism creates delusions, right? So I can believe that I'm a business owner, but I'm still operating under the same rules of an income producer. And so when I say I'm recovering, is that it is a journey. It's still like I may have had it mastered in one area of my life where I'm like, okay, I'm really leading through other people. I'm starting to think through a system, and I'm not expecting like I'm the only person who can get this done. Some areas that can happen, and then other places where I take on a new challenge, I can so easily lean back on that default mindset, which is income producer. It's just sort of like in the water we drink, in this country, in our society, which is like, it's all down to you. You're the only one who can do it and all that kind of stuff. And
you want something done right, do it yourself.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. So that's my journey with, moving from one to another.
So what you're saying is you're normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. And it's cool to try and help other people see that the struggle is normal. Like it doesn't mean they're doing something wrong. It's actually, they're doing something right. This is just how it feels, because you're challenging a lot of the story about your ego, right? The ego says like, I've got to be in control. I can't let anyone help. Your mind says one thing, but your body's going to be acting in another way. So it takes a lot of growth, and very nuanced growth, I think.
Yeah, I call it, you've heard me call it, a bad case of the nobodies. It's a business disease, and only business owners and the like seem to have it. Managers have it as well, but nobody's as good as I am, or nobody's as good. Nobody's as effective. Nobody's as knowledgeable. Nobody's as experienced. Nobody's as invested. We have all these nobodies, and we're pretty sure that nobody else can do what I do. And Henry Ford said it best: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say that mentality very much permeates when you're working with volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's like, we can never find good volunteers. We can never find, all this sort of stuff. And that mentality, I would say that, going back to, I feel like the most dangerous idea in the world is abundance. Because when you start to accept that there's abundance, there's responsibility that goes with that.
Yeah, you don't have any excuses left.
Yeah, that's a hard mirror sometimes to look at, right? Yeah. But that it removes the sort of the nobodies. It's like, well, there is somebody, but I'm still looking, or I'm still working on it, or maybe I'm not ready for them.
I think that's a piece of it. In 1997, I use this illustration of nobodies and scarcity all the time. In 1997, I asked my neighbor, what car should I buy? Because he's a car geek and I could care less. I just want a moving stereo and a couch. And he said, okay, with those, you should buy this thing. And so I went to that store and said, well, my friend sent me here and I want one of those because he said that's what I should have. And I didn't even know what the thing was. Yeah. It was I'm trying to remember, it was a Maxima. So Nissan Maxima.
Yeah.
I went to the Nissan Maxima store and said, give me one of those. And on the way home, I saw 5 or 6 of them.
Yep.
And I had never seen one in my life and didn't know what they looked like.
Right.
But I wasn't looking for them. And I was pretty sure they didn't exist. And I knew they didn't exist. What's a Maxima? We do the same thing with people. Oh, there's nobody out there that could do this. They could be sitting right beside you. You don't know because you're not looking for them. So it really does. It's a great example of how that really does happen. There's a fancy term for that awareness that you get all of a sudden when you know that something exists. Now you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
If you don't think people exist, you don't see them.
Yeah. And I don't know what that term is. It came across it in just one of my reading this week, but it also goes along with that idea of a hedonic adaptation, right? Once we have something, we disregard it. And so we get used to seeing what we see, And that's all we see, you
Yeah.
know, and that's not bad. It's just that's the normal human brain. There's
Yeah.
a way we can subvert it, but that's kind of how we're going to be. That's how we're
Well, that's
wired.
interesting. Yeah. I had a Lexus at the time and I saw those everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah,
I had
for sure.
adapted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is part of the problem is we just had this bad case of the nobodies,
Mhm.
and scarcity mindset gets us into that. We use
Mhm.
this sentence all the time, these two sentences. You either live in a world of abundance or you live in a world of a scarcity, and
Mhm.
whichever you choose affects
Mhm.
every decision you make. We choose abundance.
Yeah.
But in doing that, then you do run out of excuses.
Yeah.
Barbara Corcoran is a great example of somebody who had to get over a bad case of the nobodies. She's one of the sharks on the Shark Tank.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll never
Uh-huh.
forget 4, 5, 6 years ago, she said to a guy, "You're great, and I'm not going to invest in you because you don't think anybody else can do this.
Uh-huh.
You're the only one. You're clearly indispensable." And she
Yeah.
said, "Let me tell you a quick story. I was doing a lot of real estate in New York City and was very successful and couldn't get past all of this
Yeah.
because I was doing it all myself because I was pretty sure nobody else could do it." She
Yeah.
was an income producer making a few $1,000,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said, "I finally got over it. I finally broke through when I realized nobody else is Barbara Corcoran and they don't have to be. And then I could hire other people who weren't Barbara Corcoran and start solving my problem." And she created a global industry
Mm.
because she switched from being an income producer to a business owner. It's a
Mhm.
powerful story of that. And she recognized in this guy, he hadn't made that transition yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
You
did
know
you,
what?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know what? It just occurs to me is like the fear around AI and all this sort of machine learning and stuff like that that I hear, and there's people on either overwhelmingly optimistic it's going to end death, or then the other is it's just kind of like going to be the end of the world. But I find that it still protects people from, like, the people who are afraid. I think it still comes back to this: there's nobody else who can do what I can do. Where the real creatives go, like, it can't have a point of view. I still like it's gonna create new disruptions. It's gonna
Yep.
create new environments that I'm still gonna have to figure out how do I make a decision
Yeah.
about how to live with, right? So, but you see that it begins to force that little threat a little bit that maybe there is somebody who can do this
Yeah, I don't like
better.
that.
I
don't
know,
like
yeah.
that. It makes me dispensable. When in
Yeah,
fact,
yeah,
it makes you free.
yeah.
I'd much prefer to be free to go on to the next creative thing than to be a hostage to the things that I'm pretty sure somebody else can do. So how did you begin to you heard the difference? Okay, income producer, I'm making money, business owner, I'm building a business that makes money. You heard that. How did it begin to grow in your life?
I would say that one thing that just jumps out is knowing that first I have that whole fraud sort of syndrome sort of thing.
Yeah.
That I think that
Imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome, right? That I have that feeling of like I'm the only one who doesn't know. I'm the only one who struggles with this. And when I get in community and I realize, oh, all the people that I thought should have the answers, they'll know little pockets of different things that I didn't know, but in many ways we're very much the same. So realizing that when that bubble burst, then I had more freedom to experiment. I had more freedom actually to give myself permission to try things, and to admit that I didn't know early on in the process. And just there's a little bit of like I'm going to play dumb. I just don't know what I don't know. You know what I mean? And that was a big step in helping me move forward in that.
That's really fascinating because I came from the exact opposite angle and we both ended up at the same place. Hey, I need to be a business owner instead of an income producer because I thought I could do everything. I did think I knew it. I knew it all and I could just do it myself. And I had to come to the end of myself. So there's a lot of utter exhaustion and mental and emotional and physical coming to the end of myself saying, what in the world am I doing? And it happened in my 5th business where we started with 3 of us. We took over a failing company that had lost money for 11 years. and there was just 3 of us when we started. And 3 years later, there were 120 of us, and I was still working 55 hours a week, just like I had when there were 3 of us. And that's when I came to the end of myself and said, how in the world did we hire 117 more people, and I somehow still have 55 hours worth of work on my plate? What is wrong with me? But it was just that. I gave away tasks, but I wouldn't give away responsibility, because nobody was as good as I was. So we both came to the same place. And I say that because I think our audience will find themselves in one of those 2 places or somewhere in between, that we all have some version of being an income producer that says either I'm not good enough or I'm too good and nobody else is good enough. And
Yeah,
we have to come to the end of ourselves from different directions.
absolutely. I feel like what it makes me think of is you just can't solve internal problems with external solutions. That's the thing that you discovered, is just kind of like, doesn't matter the scale or the size of the company. The problem was within me.
Yep.
Like, and even if I had enough time to rest, if I had a vacation, I was thinking about work, or I would be always working. So what was it in me that was driving this?
Yeah.
Was it a fear thing? Was it, I actually talked to my dad about like, how he grew up and how he was like, where did you get your sense of work? What was driving you to work like this? And it was fear. For him, it was fear. He said it was fear of not being able to provide for my family. So that drove him to basically try and think of every angle, every threat that could possibly take that away,
and take control of it.
Hyper vigilant, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I think it would turn toward, I'm a performer. So it was like, I need approval. So that was the thing that I was driving for. I wasn't necessarily afraid I could take risks, but I just needed you to love me. I needed to have the applause. I needed to have all of that. Yeah. And I'm not over it by any means. I'm still a good junkie for approval, but not noticing it, I've started to be able to make some changes so I could have some of my time back.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I want to talk about how we put together. I put this together for myself because all these problems are my own. People think I actually came up with stuff in an ivory tower to sell on the internet. No, it's all stuff that I bled over, that I made mistakes. So how do I fix this? And I found myself after that business realizing I've got to change something. Something has to change. I got to figure out how to not be as important as I am, and so over maybe, I don't know, a year or two, I developed this idea of income producer and realized I'm an income producer. I'm not a business owner. The IRS has been fooling me for decades and calling me a business owner when in fact I'm not. And how do I get past that? How do I become what is a business owner? So we made that journey with the 7 stages of business ownership and all that fun stuff, and came to that place where we realized business owners seem to be people who have freedom, not necessarily to go on vacation. They certainly have that, but to move on to the next great idea, to start a second business, to work with something inside their business that needs special attention that nobody else can play with. Business owners seem to be free to be strategic. And I was not strategic at all. I just pretended to be. I was giving a lick and a promise to that, and then going back and making chairs, making shoes, doing the tactical thing. And so we came up with this game, and we called it the Business Owner's Game. And it's a really simple game because I need things to be simple in order for them to work for me. And this has changed my business life, and probably as a result, my personal life. It's a really simple game. There's 2 questions. And the objective of the game is this: making more money in less time. So the income producer says, how do I make money? Well, the only way to answer that question is to invest more time, because I have to make the money while you run out of time. But if you have a business where you're saying, how does the business make money when I'm not there? That's a whole different game. So that's the game we want to play, is how do I make more money? And as my business makes more money, I actually spend less time at work, not just the same. I should be able to go from 40 hours a week making $200,000 a year as a company to 20 hours a week making $2 million. How do I do that? So that's the game. How do I make more money in less time? And question number 1 is what I'm doing right now. Make a list. Do this for 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row. Is what I'm doing right now the highest and best use of my time and talents?
Mhm.
So how did you know, as you answered that question for yourself, how did you, there's all kinds of answers to this, but what are some ways in which you could identify, no, this is not, yes, this is the highest and best use? How did that land for you?
Yeah, because that was I mean, you stated it perfectly. It's actually questions that I feel like I'm asking daily.
Yeah.
Like, and those, because it doesn't
We never stop asking.
No, it never stopped that. But when it came to the hiring of kind of my first assistant, that was the thing that said, okay, now I'm paying somebody. I have to teach them to do something.
Yeah.
And so things like sending invoices, scheduling volunteers. Is there a system behind it? Can I train? That's where I started going, like, can I train somebody to do this? But I think the first thing is accepting the sort of like, I'm not special. Like most of what I do,
yeah,
I'm not special. There's a lot of people who can do what I do. That's not the point. It's the fact that I'm, I think that question helps move me into what is my best and highest use.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And so that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's the same thing. It's the question is around, what is it that nobody else right now, at least in my business, can do but me?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, depending on your business, you could, and if you want to, you definitely should be able to get to the answer is there's nothing that I can do that somebody else couldn't do. Richard Branson owns 400 some businesses.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't ask himself, is there something that I have to do that nobody else can do? But reality for us in small business, when there's 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 of us, there's going to be things that nobody else can do. And then the second thing is there's other things that people could do, but they actually have a better, higher, and best calling in the business. And so, yeah, they could do this, but I can also do it, and they're better off doing the other thing. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's a matter of capacity, but more often it's a matter of simple strengths and saying, is this really just what it says, the highest and best use of my time and talents? So some practical ways to do that would be to look at, well, if I paid somebody to do this, how much would it cost? So some of the things you gave to your admin, you probably pay them less than what you would do something for if it was the highest and best use of your time and talents. That's a very practical, tactical way to look at that.
Yeah. That was the thing, that things got better, things got faster when I let go of those things. And I didn't really even want to do most of them, and I started to think, like, what is the thing that I actually can't let go of?
Yeah.
What is the thing? And it's the thing I enjoy the most, honestly. It's like, I can't outsource my ideas. I can't outsource my writing. I can't, when I perform, like, I do it with my own personality.
Right.
And that's what makes it valuable. I couldn't give that to, so everything else though, I can do it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to get to that place where you know what you're really good at. I think another way to monitor this for ourselves, what is the highest and best use of my time and talents, is to ask myself, what energizes me? And I really like that question, because when I get done writing, I can write for 2 or 3 hours and put 2,000 or 3,000 words on a page. And I'm physically and mentally, and maybe even a little bit emotionally exhausted, but I am somehow energized. And I'm excited about, taking a break and coming back the next morning and diving in again. There are a lot of things that I do the same amount of time and energy on that if you gave me 2 weeks, I'm not sure it would be enough time to recover, because it doesn't energize me. Every minute of it just bleeds me dry mentally, emotionally, or physically, or all three. So that's another way to look at it. Is this something nobody else can do? Or does this really energize me?
Yeah. It's, I so agree. And it's the thing that I feel like I've got more energy at the end than I did when I started.
Yeah. But somehow you have more energy than when you started.
Yeah.
Fills your bucket.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And it's a weird thing. The hardest one for me was these kinds of things. it energizes me, and I'm really good at it,
Mm.
and somebody else should be doing it.
Yeah,
Those are the hard ones.
Yeah, I think again, you start getting, what I found is I got excited about something different, which was developing other leaders, developing people on my team to see them do things. And so then it became a new game. It was kind of like, can I level up my leadership so that I can really have that happen in a way that the quality, the spirit of it, everything is there in the same way. And that started to become pretty exciting. A lot with, like, when I took over the theater company, was like, actually, here's a problem. And from a sort of a cautionary tale, was I thought that because the company was in such terrible shape, I had to take on more hats. So I was like music directing and executive directing the last show. And I was like, in that process, realized I should not be doing this. And even though it was needed, I needed to give it to somebody and have them kind of struggle through it and help make and move forward. Because I was wiped out, I was exhausted by the end of it. But that's that was the thing, was like, I didn't see that person that I could have developed a little bit more in that process. But yeah.
And that's one of the beautiful, we don't have time for even most of the side effects, but the reality of seeing other people develop and take over things that we thought nobody else could ever do, watching them light up and seeing how they get invested in their jobs as a result of it. And then, of course, the freedom that it gives you to move on to the things that really are the highest and best use. Well, we touched the surface here, and we probably just annoyed some people with, kind of touching the surface, but I would love to give people a chance to get a hold of you and give you more things to do, to say yes or no. So how do people get a hold of Paul?
Okay, well, there's a couple of ways. One, if you're interested in and you want to come see children's theater, youth theater, which everybody needs more of that in their life, you can find me at backstorytheater.org. That you can Paul at backstorytheater.org. If you need like video production, if you need like some creative consulting or something like that, for your business, you've got an event going on, that's RL Creative, and that's just paulromig-leavitt.com. And then if you're in a church, if you're in ministry and you need a break for your worship leader, you can reach out to me for greenroomleaders.com.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Paul, it's been a delight. I love to talk to another business owner in process.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of the Get Off the Treadmill podcast. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button to ensure you are receiving the latest tools you need to grow your business and to get off the treadmill. If you want more information on the 3 to 5 Club, the Crankset Group, or to book Chuck as a business advisor, speaker, or workshop leader, you can contact us at grow, GROW, at cranksetgroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.